In this episode of the Digital Trailblazer podcast, we're going to talk about how to use AI to fully automate your lead generation process and book qualified sales calls for your business. So stay tuned.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest.
Hello and welcome. My name is Todd Getz, and with me today is Frank Sondors. Frank, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you just take a minute to introduce yourself and what you do?
Hey, Todd, thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm Frank. I've been in sales, B2B sales in particular, for over a decade. Started my career at a big corp being Google. It's not a startup anymore. It's a proper corporate environment there. And then I transitioned to work for a bunch of software companies on big data front. So working for a company called SimilarWeb on the machine learning front, which is the old AI. And then I work in a data visualization business with a sales team of 50 in my last job. And then, so a couple of years ago, nearly, I started my company called SalesForge, really with a mission and vision to help companies and even, all the way down to freelancers, consultants, etc., coaches, to generate significantly more demand for their business. So meaning more pipeline, more meetings, essentially, with the lowest possible cost. Because these days, to generate pipeline, you need typically multiple solutions. So you need a solution for the data, then you need a solution to send some emails, use AI, whatever. There's a lot of things that you need these days. Quite complicated, very similar to Google Ads. Like it's very complex to run, like keywords, you need to do bidding, whatever, then review and all that. And we try and simplify that. So we have multiple solutions that we built over the last 2 years. We scaled in the first year from $0 to $3 million in annual recurring revenue, from 3 co-founders to about 40 employees. And yeah, we're profitable since day zero. So yeah, doing quite well there.
Yeah, and using AI in your business now, I think it's one of those things that everybody's scrambling to try to figure out how to do, because it's one of those things that it's like you either got to adopt it or you're going to be left behind. And so I think this is a really neat discussion, because a lot of our audience, I think, are solopreneurs. They're working all themselves and wearing all the hats, or doing all the things. And AI is one of those things now that you can leverage in your business to get more done and to grow faster. So tell us about this, using AI to fully automate your lead generation. What are we doing here? What are we talking about?
So I mean, when you're on your own, right, you're running a business or you're providing a service, you typically can't really afford to hire somebody else, right? It's quite expensive. And there's also a lot of people that just don't want to hire anybody else. They just want to run their business, but they just want to automate parts of their business. And yes, there's a lot of automation softwares out there, but there's essentially more automation that we're seeing today because of AI, because of the large language models like GPT and other models, where doing the same bit of work takes you 10 times less the effort, to do that. Whether you're writing a blog article, about something, you can literally use AI just for that. And AI is becoming really good. So for example, we use this little software called SEO Bot. It's also a software designed for small businesses, and it allows you to generate blog articles for your specific niche. And you can generate that at any scale. I mean, you don't need to hire even freelancers. You don't need to write it yourself, anything like that. I mean, that's just an example for specifically, for content, so that you can rank a bit better in Google and stuff like that. And you can generate some leads from that. Something like that was not possible 2 years ago. And so this is an example of content marketing, but there's also other examples in the world of sort of sales. So you may have to write really good templates, and then send those out or write emails manually, and that would take you maybe 15, 20 minutes. But today, AI can write these emails to every person, unique to every individual, in seconds, literally. And you can send that out, so you don't need to hire people to write your emails for you. You don't really need even an agency or anything like that to work with, to do that work for you. And you can literally take an off-the-shelf solution. So let's say you can take an AI agent. So we run one of them. It's called Agent Frank, named after me, that runs your whole outbound pipeline. Or you can take other essentially solutions, but essentially Again, this is something that was not even available like 12 months ago. 12 months ago, you could not just take some sort of AI agent for a specific problem that you have in your business and kind of apply that. And actually, these agents or these automations are typically 10 times cheaper than hiring anybody out there, right? And because, small business owners, they can't really afford hiring people, this is definitely the path forward that I would personally also do, right? I would tinker in different tools to try and automate majority of parts of the business. Now, if you can't find a solution to your problem, then I typically say there's a second option there in the market, which is automating kind of parts of your business using a solution, let's say like N8N or Make.com or Zapier. So one of these automation solutions. Though typically what I find is that folks are not savvy enough to use those tools. So what I would suggest to do in those cases is to work with a freelancer essentially that understands these tools like N8N, Make, Zapier, and essentially help you to automate majority of parts of your business. I used to have this sort of feeling when I used to work at Google that everything was automated at Google. And when you work in a startup, everything from invoices to client management, writing blogs, whatever that is, right? So everything's repetitive. You have to, putting your own hours into this and with decent enough of a quality to produce these outputs, like blog posts, etc. And sometimes you're just not good at everything. But with AI, you can do a decent job in a lot of different areas of your little business. So that's just an example of an alternative kind of path towards automating different bits. And so, I'll give you a simple example. What we do in our business, but can be done also in the small business, is so using N8N, which is what we use as our backbone automation engine for our business. So when a lead, say, signs up onto our website and then doesn't end up sort of, booking a call with us or doesn't end up essentially buying a subscription from us, we have this AI agent, we also call him Agent Frank, that would call you typically after like 7 days or 14 days. It would ask you about your experience. Why do you end up kind of going ahead? What was stopping you? And then he would suggest to jump on a call with us to have a chat about this. And that's, again, something that can be built and automate that part. You don't have to kind of chase leads. You can let the agent do the work for you. So what that means is if you're scaling the traffic, again, maybe due to more traffic from SEO, and so you have more leads coming through, right? So you can then have these voice AI agents calling your leads immediately after some time, etc. So these are just some examples of what you can do. And it actually doesn't take that long. It literally, I have this one guy working for me. He's I call him N8N growth hacker, let's go that way. He works part-time. And he just builds these different automation flows to kill anything that's repetitive in the business. But typically we prioritize flows that generate revenue. So calling up leads generates revenue. And it took him about, I would say 20 hours just to implement the voice AI agents. And they'll work fully autonomously. And when there is a call with the prospect and there's an outcome from the call, we get like a message in Slack, which is what we use for communication, saying this was the outcome of the call. These are the next steps. If we ended up booking a meeting, then this is who the meeting was booked with and stuff like that. So, just a real life example from our business here as well.
Well, and there's so much that AI can do. But going back to that comment you made about the cost of hiring someone versus just implementing an AI agent, the cost, I think, is more than just the cost of paying the person that you're hiring. When we went through this process of going from solopreneur to hiring setters and closers and social media managers and all these things, all these different jobs in our business. For us, the hardest part was learning how to manage people and getting people to do the right thing and train them in so that they do their jobs well. For us, when I think about if we hire a good quality person, the time it takes to ramp them up where they're really producing really well, it could be as long as 6 months to a year before they're really just humming along and doing what we need them to do, and they're producing as well as we could have done it ourselves. But with AI, especially if you've got previous calls that you've recorded that you can train it on, if you've got SOPs that you've created, if you've got all this documentation and you can load it in there, it learns so much quicker. And like you said, it's as quick as 20 minutes. You can have this trained and it's doing almost as well, I think, as a regular human being. And then also just managing people. So for us, we meet with our team every single day. So that's an extra hour and a half out of our day that we have to spend just managing the team. Whereas if it's just an AI agent or two that you've got to put in your business or some automation that you're doing, you're still working as a solopreneur. You don't need to manage them. I mean, now there's stuff that you need to do on the tech side. There's other things that you need to do, but you're not managing a team anymore. You don't have to deal with sick days, vacation days. You don't have to deal with power outages at their house or whatever. So I think the cost savings is more than just the money. It's also the time. It's also the effort. It's also the growing pains of having to hire people and manage a team. So I think this can really help people to move a lot quicker and grow faster without having to go through a lot of those growing pains. Now, I think what we're talking about here specifically, kind of the reason we brought you on the show was to talk about this outbound lead generation and booking calls for your business. How does that work? Because that was the one thing that kind of really interested me is how are we fully automating that process?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, in today, actually, it is possible to fully autonomously generate actually meetings for your business. And yes, you don't actually need humans for that. So again, that can be done legally speaking, that can be done via email and via social, say LinkedIn. But it is due to the regulations in the US and Europe, it is not possible to do that through cold calling. So you can't apply any form of autonomous systems or automations when it comes to cold calling. You can though call leads via inbox, right? So if you have the opt-in. So that means email and LinkedIn are the two channels how you can autonomously engage with prospects. So the way that it works, and actually every agent will work differently, but I'll explain how it works on our end, which has a very sophisticated logic. So first and foremost, we need to have the context about your business. So what is it that you actually sell and why the heck you're reaching out to people? So typically you have to outline this sort of value prop, what we call a product card, where you outline essentially what is the pain or problem that you're really solving for the companies when you're reaching out to them. What is the solution you have on offer? What's the cost of inaction? Any case studies, any proof essentially of your work, etc. Like, who is your ICP? So who is your ideal customer profile that you're reaching out with this value prop? And you can create multiple in different languages if you also speak other languages. And then, so we have a good understanding, good context about you. You can also upload into the agent essentially all the knowledge about your company. So that could be, say, a sales playbook or pricing, FAQs, anything that is a documentation that a typical sales rep or like essentially documentation that you use, right, to move the lead through the sales process. So we have a good context about your business. We call that the seller data. So, and we combine the seller data when we're reaching out to every person with what we call the buyer data. What do we know about the potential buyer when we're reaching out to them based on publicly available data? So we do web crawling. So we go out on the internet, we go and access the website of the prospect, the LinkedIn profile of the prospect, and any other sources that may be associated with that particular prospect to try and build a good understanding. What are they doing in the business right now? What are the potential challenges? What do we see that we're doing right now? Maybe a post that I've written on LinkedIn, for example, anything like that is ultimately relevant. So anything that's not relevant, so for example, where you studied, that's not something that we take into as a context because it doesn't make a difference where you study typically. And so we match what we call the seller data with the buy data. And then so we stitch these data sets together. And then this is where we apply essentially AI on top of these two data sets. And then programmatically, we're able then to do that with every single lead and reach out to them. So we typically send up to sort of 3 emails over a span of 2 weeks. Every email that essentially is computed, what we call. So they essentially sent the initial email, 2 follow-up emails. And so if the prospect replies back then to the agent, then what happens is then the agent will engage in about sort of a couple minutes or so. So it's very fast. Speed is very important. Just to give you an idea of some stats, if you respond later than 2 hours after receiving the email, the probability of actually booking that meeting with a prospect drops massively. So responding within a 2-hour time frame is super, super important, but there's huge drop typically after 2 hours. So the agent responds within minutes because think of it this way. Let's say the potential prospect is at their laptop, they're available, they're writing emails. Boom, you send the email out. Boom, you receive a reply back, and you can have a quick conversation back and forth before you then sort of, book that meeting at the end. So the way that the agent responds to every single prospect about any question actually is based on what's available in that knowledge base where you upload the docs, right? So the pricing docs, etc. And the agent can only use that. It can't use anything else. And so any form of machine, I would say, needs to have a goal. So this agent also has a goal that it needs to achieve as part of the conversation. And the goal is to book an actual meeting with our prospect. So the way that's done is you typically hook up your calendar link or HubSpot calendar link or Calendar, whatever that is, to the agent. So agent uses that link to find the availability in your calendar and book the meeting with the prospect. There's also another goal that could be achieved for those companies that don't necessarily want to have meetings with their prospects. For some reason, they're sort of conversion path or buying path typically is on the website. So we do also have this other event which is called the click out event. Essentially, you're tasking the agent to reach out to prospects and asking the prospects to click out onto the site to continue their buy journey. So yeah, there's some cases where our companies don't want to necessarily speak to those individuals. They just want them to check out the website and continue. Could be also a webinar, could be something that's really of interest to them there. And yeah, that's something that operates within SalesForge, so our software. However, we don't discount humans in full necessarily. So because we're big believers, again, because of say legislative reasons, so you can't do cold calling, you can't really call your prospects, you will always need humans essentially in the loop. So this is why within SalesForge, you can, as a business owner, you could just onboard yourself, you can run your own campaigns, but in tandem, you can run the agent, you can do an A/B test to see if the agent will outperform you or not. And we actually want people to do that. We want for them to see whether the human is better doing the job of prospecting, booking meetings, etc., or the agent is better at that particular job, right? And then if the agent is better by say, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50% when it comes to reply rates or booking rates, whatever, it will be a no-brainer for you to stop doing things manually as a human and just give it up and give it to the agent. I think a lot of people are not comfortable using agents these days. And the reason for that is it's a bit like the internet moment back in the days, because 99% of companies today still have not used any form of AI agent. So for them, that's something alien. Only the cool companies are doing it, whatever, all the Bay Area companies, are doing this. But I can tell you that, it became much, much easier to install that thing in your business and generate for you, a humongous amount of value very quickly, literally within weeks. So that's possible today. There's a lot of what I call off-the-shelf solutions out there in the market. So our own agent, Frank.ai. So you can check it out, agentfrank.ai. You can get a unique email crafted to you. All we're going to ask is for your email address and for your LinkedIn profile. That's it. So that will give you kind of a glimpse on what the agent could do. But there's no reason why you shouldn't be implementing this, because think of it this way, like, your competitors will be implementing these systems. It's inevitable, right? So you want to make sure you're generating more revenue at a, significantly better margins, right? So meaning that typically does mean you want to be lean and mean. You don't want to be hiring necessarily too many individuals in your business. And these agent systems, any of them off the shelf or not, is something that I do see people implementing. And essentially we're going to see the whole economy, doesn't matter whether it's in sales or finance or other spaces, we're going to see that blend where essentially within a single maybe software environment, you will see humans working with their AI agents together to generate more output at a lower cost per unit. So the unit in our case, I think, is a meeting booked, right? So because we are really optimizing the whole business to help people book more meetings. So yeah, that's how I see the whole economy panning out. Inevitably, I think, with all these agents, so naturally, we build agents on the seller side, what we call it, right? So to help, business to reach out. But we already are seeing actually also agents on the buyer side, right? So when, you're on the other end, you're seeing these emails from different companies, etc. And yeah, some buyers are overwhelmed. Sometimes they get like 100 emails or so. And so they start to install on their end, actually, these agents as well. But we are definitely moving slowly but surely towards a world where essentially the agents on the seller side will be talking to the agents on the buyer side. And then that's where we headed. I mean, so yeah.
Yeah, and that's a funny thought in and of itself. I'm curious as to how that's going to pan out. Now, going back to the initial outbound, so we're saying that we can't do automated outbound phone calls with AI agents. Now, so here's where I have the question, is because I used to get robocalls all the time. Sometimes I still do, like when I book an appointment with somebody and I get an automated call and it's a robot that's telling me that, hey, reminder about your appointment or whatever. So are all types of automated calls supposed to be illegal now?
No, only the calls where it's a true call where you have no essentially opt-in, right? So if you opted in to receive communication from that business, then they have the legal right to contact you, whether with a human or not, or through robocalling, right? So, or AI agent, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same in the eyes of the user, right? So the human is not calling, something else is calling, right? So the machine. So that is fine. And we do see some businesses applying strategies where, I don't know, let's say you're gonna send some sort of, let's call it a freebie via the email. We're going to say, hey, I build like a checklist for you, what you need to do when it comes to outbound sales. So you go on the website, you download that checklist. You tick the box, I accept the TNCs, and the TNCs say that we can contact you, right? So this is sort of a way how you can definitely activate these voice AI agents. But yeah, without an opt-in, it is definitely legal. I sometimes read on, I don't know, indie hackers or whatever. I do read that somebody's getting a cold call from an agent, and then they do make a complaint. And it's quite the fines are quite hefty. So I wouldn't advise you to use any form of systems that do true call calling because the regulators will be after you. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that in the past, these bots that called you were obviously bots, or it was obviously a recording. And here's the thing, just a couple months ago, I remember saying on this podcast that whenever I watch YouTube and I see an AI generated video, like it's obvious that it's AI and it's not what I want, and I click off. And now I'm seeing stuff that looks movie quality. The things that just came out in the last week that I've been seeing shorts and reels on, and just these little clips. I think it's some new software that came out from, I forget what it was, maybe Google or something like that. But yeah, it's generating movie quality videos of people fully AI generated. And these movie scenes, you just put a few prompts in and it sounds real. With our podcast, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take the audio from it. I'll upload it to a tool called Notebook LM. And that one is from Google. And I can upload the audio there and then tell it to write a blog post for me around that video. One of the other options in there that I just started playing around with is to generate a discussion about the podcast. And the discussion it generates sounds like two real human beings. They talk and sound just like real human beings talking about our podcast episode and what happened and what we talked about. And it is scary how real that sounds. If I didn't know it was AI generated, I would have thought that these are two real people. So it's incredible how far this has come in such a short amount of time.
There was another trend actually over the last 2 weeks where there's I think a software or a guy that makes essentially the people on a podcast babies. Essentially,
Yeah, I've seen that.
You've seen that one?
I've seen that, yeah.
Oh, I would love to. If somebody would make the two of us, into babies. And that is trending, right? Imagine two little babies talking to each other, and it's cute and drives attention, right? And it's something it's such a, pattern trap, but you're listening to that. But yeah, it's two babies talking to each other. And yeah, somebody invented that a couple of weeks ago and is selling that as a sort of a service. There's so much more that AI can do and will do for us. And I think the companies that really embrace the technology and think about how to implement it in their businesses as quickly as they can, you'll make ultimately your life easier, better, faster, whatever, cheaper, more revenue, all of that. I don't see arguably any disadvantages of this. Like, why wouldn't you implement this, right? I think the problem becomes is you don't know how to implement, you don't know which tools to use, etc. And me neither, to be honest. I'm in the AI space. I don't know sometimes, what's the best LLM, so large language model, to use for this particular use case or that particular use case, right? And yeah, this is where you hire these people that spend all day long just in this area, right? So they specialize in this, because I'm not an engineer, right? So, but I do hire very smart AI engineers that will work on this, right? So, and they spend time every day building the best possible agent Frank, best possible copy in the right language, everything. So I'll give you an example right now. For example, we're launching in Japan as an example, right? And the way that the agent has to work in Japan is very, very different to the way it should work in the US, right? And there's, apart from localizing the agent, it has to also greet the individual in particular form in Japanese, so there are specific rules how you engage with individuals and all that stuff. But yeah, if you give the AI the right sort of what we call directions and railguards in place, and you have the right railguards in place, it does generate for you humongous value. And this is why you also see companies in the US becoming significantly leaner and meaner. And if you look at these charts, I think there's charts also on the internet where how many employees do you need to generate $1 million? Essentially just goes down every single year. And with the AI, it just keeps on accelerating, essentially. So, and yeah, if somebody has listened to Sam Altman from OpenAI, he also says, one day we'll see, potentially somebody generating $1 billion, individual. But it is all possible. And it also unlocks new capabilities, right? So some people literally just drop what they're doing in their business and they're starting something totally new because of what they've seen, with the video quality from the movies, for example, right? Somebody will go out there right now and build a business around this because the technology is there. Because you said, wow. And also, was like, when I looked at it, like, wow, this is amazing. So I assume right now there's like hundreds of companies right now, they're building something around this, right? And using these models, maybe to build, short movies, whatever, whatever it is that they're doing. And that's also, generates a lot of humongous value. So yeah.
Now, going back to this process of generating leads. So the first step is scraping the internet and then sending out the initial emails. So how is that done? You're programming into the AI what your ICP is. And so it's searching the internet for the contact information of those people And is it generating those emails, or do you have an email template that it uses, or how does that work?
Yeah, so once we know the ideal customer profile against the value prop, so the service or product that you're selling, we have two options. Option one, we will find those leads for you. So we have what we call search engine. It's another product essentially which searches leads across multiple databases in the world. So think of it like Google, ChatGPT. You're typing in, these are my, this is my ideal customer profile, and you're looking for leads, right? So we'll get those leads for you across multiple databases. So, and then that's option one. Option two, we also believe that our customers have a lot of leads, sometimes sitting in their CRM or somewhere, right, in the spreadsheet, and they're just not processing them. So our users can upload a list of their customers for the agent to process. So yeah, so once we have the first name, last name, the email address, understanding where they work based on the domain at the end, and also LinkedIn profile, then we have enough information about the individual to craft a really good email and a relevant email based on, again, the seller data, so your value prop, and what do we know about then the individual based on publicly available data, right? So we go on the web and just search everything that we can about that individual. We stitch these two data sets together, and then this is when we apply it in the AI. So we use a publicly available model. Sometimes it's OpenAI, sometimes it's Claude, whatever, So whatever the model, these models change all the time. But we're always looking for the best quality models out there for copywriting, essentially. And then there are a bunch of different settings that, we also enable for the users to do. I don't know, in Europe, for example, people like to greet individuals in their native mother tongue. So let's say in France, you'll receive an email where it starts with bonjour instead of hey, as an example, right? So it's these things that salespeople typically do, but you could do that within the AI. And there's other things that you could do. You can do we call multi-threading. So for example, you can reach out to multiple people at the company, etc. So all of these things is something that you can sort of adjust when you set up the agent, including the tonality. Do you want to be more formal? Do you want to be informal, casual, whatever, whatever it is that you want to be. And that's how we set up the agent, and then the agent runs, right? So agent then goes out, reaches out via email. Next month, we're also launching LinkedIn. So we'll do exactly that about LinkedIn, but with a very different style of a messaging. So imagine the way that it will work is you'll be able to connect your LinkedIn profile and the LinkedIn profiles of your employees. So for the agent Frank to use essentially these profiles as a site, you're essentially going to become the sidekick of the agent. And again, you write sort of very short, snappy messages, sort of WhatsApp-like, that will be sent to your prospects to engage with them. Because naturally, when you apply a second channel, so for every channel that you typically add in the sales process, so let's say we're going to add LinkedIn, we typically see 20 to 30% improvement in reply rates on the lower bound when we're reaching out to prospects. That's just by adding a second channel. And if you would add the voice somehow with humans, I guess, right, because it's illegal to call with the agents, then again, that could be another 20 to 30%. So this is why multi-channel generally generates significantly more replies, because the reason for that is very simple. Let's say on email, an agent would reach out, but because this prospect receives way too many emails, right? You're fighting for attention, and sometimes the user doesn't even read the emails. Everything goes straight to junk. Like they would just mark everything and just push it to junk because they don't want to read even the emails. Whereas on LinkedIn, sometimes they don't get any messages whatsoever. So you essentially, then you'll be the only person sometimes. So this is why it's also important to try and reach out to that individual across multiple channels, because and also there's also sort of a preference thing. I can tell you there's some people like, oh, I never respond on LinkedIn, but I will always respond on email. There are these individuals as well, and vice versa. It could be also the case, right? So this is super important to be doing when you have what's called a small TAM. So when you have a small total addressable market to go after, then you'll have to do more and more multi-channel. But if you have a huge TAM, so for example, we have some customers that work with us, and the guys tell me, Frank, I have like millions of potential businesses I could reach out in the US, and I just need a solution that can do that sort of programmatically, craft really great emails, etc., instead of hiring sales reps, right? So sales reps are very expensive, just like engineers. So that's also the other reason why you would look at these sort of agentic systems, because then you wouldn't need to pay, even commissions, which is very expensive to be paying out.
So once you send out those emails and people respond, what's the next step? Are they calling you, or is your AI agent calling them? Or are they just booking a call directly from that?
No, so there's a conversation back and forth. So imagine if you would respond, Todd, then you would say, Frank, I love this. How much does it cost? Right? So you just immediately respond. So the agent within like a minute or two will reply back to you. And we may ask, well, it depends, can you give me some idea on XYZ? And then you'll say, blah, 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 whatever you're going to say, right? And then you just like, okay, I think it's going to cost you this much. So it gets that data from that knowledge base where you upload that sales playbook or pricing or FAQs, right? So that's where it takes that information that will provide that. If the agent does not know what to answer, actually the agent would stop and would wait for the human sort of to intervene, essentially to engage, to take over. But yeah, the agent, is tasked to reply to every single reply and achieve a goal. So that goal is that meeting booked that I spoke about. That is a very typical goal that we're tasking for the agent to do.
Okay, so everything is done back and forth through email.
Well, I mean, once we're going to introduce LinkedIn, it could be LinkedIn, right? So if the conversation started on LinkedIn, then it would be on LinkedIn, kind of back and forth. But it would be the same logic where the business would connect their calendar link or HubSpot calendar link, and would use that link to try and book a meeting either on LinkedIn then in future or on email. But it's a very similar sort of concept. I mean, this is what I do manually on LinkedIn, right? So I kind of have a conversation with a prospect back and forth on LinkedIn, and then I'll be like, should we grab some time next week to chat this through? And yes, I also personally wish I could have, I don't know, a personal assistant doing this for me on LinkedIn, because it does take me a lot of time. Yesterday, I spoke to about probably 100 people on LinkedIn. And, I'm a CEO running a company of 40 people. That I have also other things to do, but I do have a lot of people that I engage, and they do want to potentially buy my stuff. But there's a lot of conversation that goes back and forth on LinkedIn. It is very time consuming. So like managing replies, making sure you're on top, etc., super important. Because if you're not going to be on top of this, people lose interest and then they don't engage anymore. They don't book a meeting. So like reply handling is super important. Some businesses get so many replies back from their prospects, but they just can't handle the volume of replies effectively enough to book enough meetings, right, in the business. Because let's say you maybe are in meetings like swamped, so you don't reply quickly enough. So replying quickly to your prospects is like super important. So yeah.
Well, and you mentioned this earlier, is that even with a phone call, calling somebody or replying within 2 hours drastically improves the chances that you'll actually land a client. There's actually a term for it, speed to lead. I forget what the actual numbers is. I think it's like 9 times or 10 times more likely that you'll generate a sale versus if you wait more than 2 hours. And I think from what we heard, we had a process where when somebody would opt into something and they'd give us their phone number, we'd have somebody calling them within 5 to 10 minutes. That 5 to 10 minute time frame, that was the critical point where if you waited longer than that, you were less likely to get them on the phone and things kind of fell off the cliff. But if you could hit it within that first 5 or 10 minutes of them opting in, it's like you're hitting them at the right time where they're opting in, they're interested, they're on the task, they're actively seeking information about that thing right now. And if you can intercept that and make that part of the process, it is so much more likely that that lead will become an actual paying client. Versus if you wait the next day or something, they've already moved on, they've already forgotten what they opted into and all that stuff. And now it's much less likely that things are going to happen. So that speed to lead is super important.
Yep. Not just on outbound, I would say, also on inbound front. So meaning if you turn up also. So I'll give you an example of what we do. So I already mentioned about voice AI agents that we implemented. But also on inbound front, what we do is naturally you typically fire some sort of email, right, from your business, like an onboarding email, whatever that is. But we also actually engage or try and see, because we ask for a phone number as part of our sign up, we also try and see whether this individual is on WhatsApp. And if they are, we would actually send a quick message on there. We would say something like, hey, this is Frank from The Forge. Let me know if you got any questions. And that's it. That's all we're going to send. I call that sales support, essentially. And so I'm here to answer any questions. And guess what? We get 10 times more replies on WhatsApp than on email. 10 times, right? So if there is a way for you to collect the number and then try and figure out what it is WhatsApp and then send a quick message automatically, then you will receive, at least in our business, I was saying 10 times more replies than receiving a reply to an inbound related.
Now, at any point during this process, are you qualifying the leads before or maybe even after they book an appointment? Because I know a lot of times people will book calls with us and they're not really qualified and we'll have to cancel the appointment. Most of the time we're qualifying them before they even get on a call and we don't book the appointment. They're interested and then we ask them some questions and it's like, oh, you know what? This is really not going to be a good fit. Probably maybe 6 months down the road, or this isn't a service that we offer because maybe they were interested in done for you or something. So does the AI agent qualify them, or is there a questionnaire on the booking form where they can fill out some questions and qualify them there? Or what's the qualification process for when people are booking calls?
Good question. So yes, there's essentially 3 approaches, essentially, right? So you could have a rules-based qualification. So based on the answers you provide, it's either yes or no, or maybe, right? So option 2 is yes, you can use AI agents where it may put you sort of the meeting is sort of to be booked is pending or whatever, you're on hold there, and the agent qualifies you, or the agent could qualify you also in real time, right? To figure out whether this is a fit or not. And then we use the option 3 where we actually do not qualify. So actually there's a reason why we do that. So in our business, yes, we get essentially, if you don't qualify, you also get a lot of leads that are not qualified. But the way we look at it is when we jump on a call with, say, business owners, coach, etc. Yes, even though they're not qualified for what it is that we're selling, I mean, most of the people are qualified, but like there are some that are not. But the way we look at it is, okay, they're not qualified, but we spoke to them. We told them, yes, they're not qualified, but we do ask them sometimes on the call, is there somebody else that may be qualified actually for this, right? So I look at it a bit more of from a sort of brand building sort of standpoint. You also build a brand just by talking to people, because even though they're not qualified right now, they could be qualified later. Yes, you could automate this, but like this part is something where we feel like we're still okay to let it be processed by a human, as long as you build it effectively enough. But I mean, my sales reps, they have typically about 8 to 10 calls a day. If it's not a fit, then the call will end in about 5 minutes. But we're not losing anything from that. If it would be like swamped, then yes, it's a totally different story. If it would be swamped, then yes, it would need to rigorously qualify to reduce the load on every single rep. Because you said, speed to lead. So yes, when you do book a meeting, like guess what? You want to speak today in a lot of cases. And sometimes you book an appointment, it's like in 1 week's time. You're like, damn, I have to wait a week to speak to somebody. So there's other thing that we do. Sometimes people just want to speak to us. But if you go to our website today, SalesForge.ai, and if you're going to go to, I think, like a pricing page, like a high intent page, you're checking out the page during the working hours when our sales team works. There is a sort of this widget on the website, bottom right, where there'll be a person that will sort of wave at you, etc. And you can actually call that person live on the site. And you can have a quick conversation, potentially even show you the platform, like a real-time demo, literally on the website. So you can just go there, check it out. We generate from that, and that's not a voice AI agent, right? These are real humans. They're just working, and somebody's calling, and you're going to get a ping in Slack. So you'll pick up the phone, and you're talking to the individual. And we generate on average, I would say 5 to 10 calls a day, just by having that stuff on there. And it has nothing to do with AI agents. I actually told that company, hey, listen, so when they're sleeping, I want that thing to work. And I don't use it to call. And then if the real humans are not there, I want the AI agent to pick up, so, and to talk to the prospect, right? So I'm a big believer, if you have decent amount of traffic on your site, don't shy away, to talk to your customers. So try and have some sort of, widget like that, because they don't want to wait for that meeting to be booked, whatever, with the rep. They just want to talk now, ask quick questions, self-qualify, whatever. But do it 24/7, right? So if you're not around, well, right, or the humans are sleeping, whatever, they're eating on lunch, whatever, break, then let the AI agents do the work, right? And the AI agents will have all that context about the business anyways. So we load everything that's, in our knowledge base, everything about business, even we put about blog articles, into that agent, right? Literally knows a lot of stuff about our business, more stuff than the human. And think of it this way also, that, that the AI agent can process essentially billions of lines of code very, very fast. A human can't do that, right? So a human will not necessarily know sometimes, what to answer on the call, right? So, but the AI agent will immediately know the answer. That's something that we're pushing that team also to do. So that's also another thing that you can do. You can literally install voice AI agents. In our segment, it makes sense, right? Because in our segment, we, look after a lot of coaches, business owners, agencies, tech companies, whatever. They are, a lot of cases, founders, of the business, CEOs, also sales leaders or sales reps. And they love to have like a little chat, to see if it's a fit or not. And it makes sense in our business. But I would highly advise to test that out.
Frank, this discussion about AI, it's very new and it's changing almost daily. There's so many people out there just still trying to wrap their heads around it who maybe haven't even done a single thing with it. If people want to learn more about you and what you do and how you can maybe help, how can people find you online?
Probably the best way would be just search on LinkedIn, Frank Sondors, and the guy with the bacon emoji. You'll see. I'm probably the only guy. I haven't seen another guy with the bacon emoji. It comes from the same, bring home the bacon. So you can chat GPT what it means, if you're not sure what it means. And then otherwise, you can feel free to check out our website, SalesForge.ai. That's where also the agent lives. If you want to check out the agent, it's agentfrank.ai. And these are typically the best place to find me and more about us.
Great. And I think you've got a discount code for people as well.
Yes. I think I shared that with you, but
Sales and Bacon?
Yes, that was the one.
Yeah. So it looks like 10% off of if you use the discount code Sales and Bacon, if you want to check things out. Frank, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This AI thing, I was very resistant to it when it first came out. Now that we've started using some of it, we're diving headfirst into this. I think everybody should be leveraging this some way in their business. So definitely, I think people should check out you and what you do. But thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciated having you on today.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Cheers.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.